Hey everyone, my name is Skylar Woods and I am the Director of Music Technology here at CC. This first tutorial will cover all of the basics and fundamentals for the Zoom H4n Pro, which is an ultra-portable handheld recording device, but it also serves as a wonderful field recording device as it has a built-in XY pattern condenser microphone, perfect for all of the needs in environment and sound, and will serve wonderfully in this class. So to get things started, let's go ahead and grab our Zoom recorder case, which you will have been issued from the library. Open it up. As you can see, inside the unit, we have our Zoom recorder in its plastic case, which you can go ahead and pop out. You have the wind foam dead cat, which is going to be used for blocking wind or other unwanted sounds from your Zoom recorder, as well as a pair of AA batteries to replace yours when they die, a SD card adapter, which can be used to take your SD card from the Zoom device and transfer files over to your computer for use in Ableton, as well as the Zoom recorder itself, which you can see here, 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 and then on this side you can open up and see the SD card, which you will also have a 32 gigabyte SD. The first thing I want to bring to your attention is that the Zoom H4n runs on two AA batteries, which can be found by removing and opening this compartment here on the back. Please ensure that the stamina switch is set to off, as it will increase your battery life. However, it does decrease the quality of audio as well as other functionality like phantom power inside your device. Let's go ahead and pop that back on. As mentioned, the device records to a standard SD card located here on the right side of the device. To turn the device on, you can see the power switch here. If you slide down and release, the Zoom will load up. Takes a few minutes here to do it. It actually does go kind of slow. However, once it's up and running, this thing is pretty much a tank. Just go ahead and let that finish. Okay, so now as you can see, the Zoom device is powered on, and if this is the first time you've ever used this device or the first time you're turning it on, what I will ask you to do is go ahead and press the menu switch here on the side, which will open up the main menu in the device, and use the scroll wheel, which will be the main selector for all scrolling through the different menus available on the Zoom. But we will go down until we reach the one titled SD card, push in on the dial to select it, and then format. Go ahead and select yes, you are sure, and this will reformat the SD card that is on your Zoom device, or excuse me, in your Zoom device, so that way it functions its best as well as erases any other content that may have been on there from a previous class. Does take a little bit of time. And here we are. We now have a fresh SD card loaded into our Zoom recorder, and it is good to go. Another setting I would like to bring to your attention, if you haven't already seen on here, if you're looking at the display, you can see up here in the upper left one that reads 4816. That is in reference to the quality of the WAV file we're recording on. If you do not have those settings, what I would like for you to do is press the WAV/MP3 button, number 4 on the front of your device. By selecting that, you can scroll through the different types of audio settings. For this course, what you're going to want is 48 kilohertz at 16 bits, which is going to give you a very good amount of headroom, but also good quality sound without taking up too much room on your SD card. The next thing that I'd like for you to take a quick note of is under this menu here, folder, file, speed we won't need to pay much attention to. That is just with regards to the playback, which is unnecessary for our needs. But if you press folder, it opens what are the 10 folders that can be stored on the device. I mentioned these because as you are collecting different sounds and samples, you might want to, in your mind, select some of these folders where you will categorize and organize your sounds, just to make it easier for yourself later down the road when you are trying to identify these with your notebook, and making sure that you're keeping everything in a nice, orderly fashion. So go ahead and select which folder. I like to start in folder 1, If you ever want to view the files within that folder, you can simply press File, and that will give you a list of any recordings within that current folder you have selected. Some other things to note about the Zoom H4n is that if you rotate it to the bottom here, you can see that it is built to take on 2 XLR microphones, which are also simultaneously 1/4-inch inputs for things like instruments or other 1/4-inch outputs that you might find on synthesizers or other strange recording devices. By default, these microphones are paired and linked in the menu. So if you need to run either one of these as a separate mono signal, that is possible. You would just need to go again to the menu, go down to Input, and from here, turn 1-2 link from on to off. But we're going to go ahead and leave that on for now. From here on the left side, under Input, you can see there is mic and 1 and 2. If you select 1, 2, that is going to be activating these bottom 2 XLR inputs. However, if you have mic selected, that is going to utilize the 2 stereo inputs on the Zoom recorder that it has built in. These are wonderful sounding condensers and honestly do a great job for all types of Foley, dialogue, and other types of just sampling you might want to get for your own needs. So for most of this course, that is likely what you will be using, unless you would like to try something a little more experimental in some other avenues. Something I'd like to bring to everyone's attention is that on the stereo pair that is up here, you can see that there is the 90-degree angle marker facing forward right now, meaning that you're going to get a stereo image. However, it will be much more narrow and is great for things that you are really pointing directly at, but it doesn't create a lot of ambience around the source, so it's good if you're trying to capture a very specific sound and cut out residual noise that could be around that. The inverse of this setting is if you take these, you physically rotate them from 90 to 120, you are thus increasing the range that you have for your stereo image, and then that will create a wider stereo image, which is great for things that you want to feel a little more immersive, or maybe a sound you're trying to collect that also you simultaneously want to gather a little bit of the sounds that are around it as well, and the ambience that is around it. For most people's needs, however, I imagine you will be using these on 90 degrees. Again, that is stereo, however, it's a little more focused and reduces a little bit more of the ambient sounds that are going to be around it. So once you've selected if you want the 120 degrees or 90 degree angling for your microphones, if you've selected if you would like to use the built-in or the 2 XLRs that are there, the next thing for you to do is record. Something that's very important to know about all Zoom recording devices, but especially the H4n Pro, is that when you first press this red recording button, it will blink red, indicating that it is ready to record. Before this unit starts recording, you will need to press this button a second time, to which the red blinking light will go solid, and at that point, the device is recording. Now, the important thing for you to note here is when it is blinking and ready to record, you can use this opportunity to perform your sound check as well as go over anything in your setup. For example, with the sample we're going to test here, which is the nice handy-dandy plastic case that comes with the unit, I'm going to hold the device up to it and close it. And that actually peaked pretty high, so that's obviously bad. We don't want peaking in our signal. That will cause unwanted distortion. So what I will ask you to do is then go to your record level on the right-hand side of the device. And if you press minus, you can see that that will lower the microphone level input. Let's just bring this all the way down to 20. One last time, and this time I'm going to hold it a little further away just to ensure that I don't get that peaking. Perfect. Okay, so now that I can see my unit will not be clipping on the inputs and it will only be peaking around minus 6 dB, that's perfect for what I need. So I will go ahead and press the button again, putting the light in solid red, and take the sample. Now, the next thing that I'll need to mention here, and I will just do a dummy track now so you can see what I'm talking about. If you press record, it blinks ready for record. If you press a second time, the device is now recording. However, if you press record while this is happening, it will not stop the unit from recording. It will simply place a marker on the unit so that way you can reference those markers later on. If you press pause, it will just pause the recording, to which it's still ready to record, as you can see with the red blinking light. And if you press pause one more time, it will continue recording. This is good if you need to take a little bit of time to move between settings, but you want them all to appear as the same file. However, in most cases, once you are recording, what you will need to do when you are finished is press the stop button. By pressing stop, the unit will stop the recording and save the file. Now that we've recorded our first sample, if you'd like to listen to it back, which I recommend you do, you can simply press play. And you can hear that it's playing back the most recent sample. Now, if you want to review other samples you've recorded, go back to the File button we've been to previously. Select that, and again, you'll see the list of all the other recordings you've made that exist in the folder you're currently on. In our case, folder 1. So if you select that file, you can also select other things that might be interesting to do for it, such as rename the file. This can be useful if you want to just provide small descriptions of what your files are, such as Babbling Brook or Tree. That way, when it comes time to download these later, you're saving yourself an extra step. However, I understand that's a little hard to do in the field, so a lot of times it's good to just take personal notes. That way you can line those up with your recordings later. So we'll press menu to get back out, menu one more time to go to the main interface, and here we are. Something else to note when you're initiating playback is if you press play, the device is now recording, and you pause it, it will pause where you are, and then you can continue playback from that same spot. And if you press forward and backward, it will jump you through to the beginnings and ends of your different samples that you have on the device until you reach the end of the folder that you're currently in. So now the last thing that we're going to do as a final demonstration is shut down our device, which can be done by holding the power switch to the bottom for 3 seconds. And you will see that goodbye, see you later as an indicator that the device is properly shut off. Now, if you go back to your SD card, we open the compartment and remove it. We can take this SD card and insert it into our SD card reader. My computer utilizes a USB-C type, but if your computer is regular USB, you can also find that on the other side of your adapter. So I'm going to plug this into my computer here. So now that we've got our SD card adapter plugged into our computer, you can see it has shown up here on our desktop. If you open this, you can see the different folders that the device categorizes things into. We were creating stereo recordings. So if we open up that folder, we can see our 10 folders that go inside the device like we discussed. So again, if you were to organize your samples and follies into different folders, that way it's easier for you to do this later, great. However, it's not a requirement. We were recording into folder 1, so we will open up folder 1 and preview our sounds so we know that it's there. What I like to do is take my recordings from the SD card and put them into a folder that I've designated somewhere on my desktop or in my documents or possibly the SSD that I am running the session from. However, once you've removed your files from the SD card, you can go ahead and close that window. And from here, we will open up Ableton. So now that Ableton has opened, what I always like to do and what I encourage everyone in the class to do as well is if you go down over here to your left-hand side in Ableton, you go to Add Folder. Once you've clicked that, you can view anywhere on your computer, but what I will have you do is go to wherever you created your environment and sound recordings folder. In my case, I have it over here. And I'm going to open that. That will save this as its own enclosed folder directly into Ableton, so that way whenever I have other files that are added to it later, or if I need to retrieve the raw files myself, they're all already there in my session, and I have a designated place that doesn't leave the session no matter what I'm doing. Now if you go to the arrangement view, you can very easily create some new audio tracks. You can select your folder for environment and sound, and you can grab and bring in your samples and use it however you would like. Thank you for watching my brief tutorial on the basics of using your Zoom H4n Pro. I hope this was informative, and if you have any questions, please find me or send me an email. I will be happy to help you in any way that I can. Thank you, and have some fun.